Welcome to the Book Nook podcast. Today we're taking a really fascinating journey into the world of Aesop's fables.
Mm-hmm.
These ancient kind of bite-sized stories, often featuring animals, they still offer surprisingly sharp insights into how we humans behave. It's amazing how these tales have stuck around.
It really is.
And hey, if you'd like to explore these timeless stories yourself, be sure to check the link in the description. You can grab your very own copy of Aesop's Fables there.
Absolutely worth doing. And it truly is remarkable. We've looked at, well, quite a range of perspectives on these fables for this deep dive.
Right.
Everything from a homeschooling parent, carefully picking out editions for their kids, to literary critics thinking about their enduring power.
So what's the plan?
Well, our goal today is kind of to unpack why these seemingly simple narratives still hit home and what makes certain collections maybe more valuable in passing on that wisdom.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. What actually makes a fable a fable? I mean, fundamentally.
Good question. So one of our sources points out that you're typically looking at stories where animals, plants, sometimes even forces of nature, they act and speak with human traits.
Okay, talking animals mostly.
Pretty much. And that kind of sets them apart from fairy tales, right? Where the focus is usually on human characters and, you might get magic thrown in.
Ah, that's a helpful distinction. It frames what we're talking about.
Exactly. And understanding that helps us appreciate the specific kind of wisdom these tales offer. It's also worth noting something another source highlighted.
Yeah.
While we call them Aesop's fables, he was probably more of a collector, a curator of these stories.
Oh, interesting. Like the Brothers Grimm with fairy tales.
Precisely. So these stories have deep roots, often untraceable, anonymous origins.
Wow, so they're like these universal nuggets of wisdom passed down through generations. That says something about storytelling itself, doesn't it?
Yeah. It really does. And what's continually striking is how these really brief narratives, they manage to pack in such profound observations about, well, everything. Our emotions, our flaws, our hopes.
Social dynamics?
Right. How we interact, our ideas about fairness, hard work, even luck plays a role.
It's almost like a little instruction manual for being human. Our sources pulled out so many of these timeless lessons.
Yeah, loads of them.
Like the idea of being careful around people or animals in the stories. We've already shown they could be dangerous. That feels incredibly relevant. Even now, it speaks to, predictable behavior.
It does. The fables consistently remind us, don't they, that past actions are often a good clue to future behavior. Not just with individuals, but maybe broader social things, too.
And what about distinguishing between just being well-known, maybe even infamous, and actually earning respect? That's a subtle point.
A very subtle but important social observation you see in several tales.
Yeah. And then there's the emphasis on thinking before you leap. Careful consideration before committing. Huh? Yeah, less many of us could probably use more often. We see that play out all the time in the fables.
We certainly do. And consider the one about persuasion being stronger than force. That shows a pretty sophisticated grasp of influence, doesn't it? It's something still relevant in diplomacy, leadership, even just getting along day to day. It's not always about who's strongest.
It's fascinating how these simple stories touch on such complex stuff. And the classic warning, don't count your chickens before they hatch.
Right. Speaks directly to our tendency for premature optimism, something we all do.
Guilty as charged.
And then the idea that real value can sometimes be overlooked, like the tiny mouse helping the huge lion, that really challenges our assumptions about where strength or importance truly lies.
It really does flip your perspective. We also see that constant theme of self-reliance being important and the warnings about revenge, how it can backfire.
Definitely. And the influence of the company you keep, who you hang out with, matters. It's like a mini guidebook for life.
It is. And there are others too, right? Fables about maybe gaining something, but at too high a cost.
Yes, exactly. Or the importance of appreciating what you have before it's gone. These tap into fundamental parts of human psychology, how we value things, often wrongly.
It's quite a list of insights already, and we've barely scratched the surface. Our sources also mentioned the importance of gratitude.
Gratitude. And offering practical help in a crisis, not just, empty words.
Right. Action over advice sometimes.
And there's that interesting kind of counterintuitive idea that maybe the people who complain the loudest are actually suffering the least.
That's one to think about. What does that tell us?
Well, it touches on resilience, maybe. Different ways people cope. The fables often drop these little wisdom bombs that when you think about them reveal deeper truths.
Sure.
And then you have warnings against stretching yourself too thin, the power of habit, good or bad, and how we tend to focus more on what we've lost than what we lack right now.
A powerful reminder to value the present. And of course, keeping promises, learning from other people's mistakes.
Yes, and that constant balancing act between safety and freedom. That tension feels relevant in any time, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And the ones that poke fun at people pretending to be something they're not.
Right.
Like the wolf in sheets clothing.
Right, underscoring authenticity, the problems with deception, and finally that recurring theme of taking responsibility for your own successes, personal agency. It's just such a rich tapestry woven into these short tales.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit. One of our sources, this homeschooling parent, gave a really practical look at how different collections of fables can change the experience, especially for kids.
Yeah, that was interesting. What really came through is how the retelling and the presentation make a huge difference.
How so?
Well, some collections were described as dry, too
Hmm.
short, lacking the narrative feel. The storytelling was kind of lost.
Right, just the bare bones, maybe?
Exactly. And then the illustrations, which you mentioned, are key for kids. They varied wildly. Some were too cartoony, others maybe too realistic, even a bit scary for young children.
So finding the right visual style is crucial.
It highlights how important it is to think about who you're choosing the book for. The tone, the art, it all needs to fit. And another big factor for this parent was whether there was a clear moral stated at the end.
Ah, the takeaway message.
Yeah, they preferred versions that included a concise moral. It seemed to help crystallize the lesson for their kids.
Makes sense. And they found one collection they really liked.
They did. One that seemed to hit the sweet spot. Engaging retelling, nice illustrations that weren't frightening, and clear, well-phrased morals. They even compared different versions of The Lion and the Mouse.
Oh, how did those differ?
Well, in length, for one. Some focus more on the lion, some more on the mouse. And the wording of the moral changed slightly, too.
Leading to different interpretations.
Exactly. Even subtle language shifts can shape how you understand it. Like, is the main point kindness is never wasted, which emphasizes generosity? Or is it even the strongest sometimes need the help of the smallest, focusing more on interdependence?
Wow, same story, slightly different angle.
Right. Both valid takeaways, but they highlight different facets of the story's meaning.
It really shows the power of phrasing and how we interpret these things. And as we said, illustrations play a huge part.
A massive part. One reviewer specifically said, try to get a copy with good illustrations because they really enhance the story, help you picture it.
But it needs to be done right.
Yes. Because another source pointed out a collection with beautiful full-page pictures, but they weren't always right next to the fable they illustrated.
Oh, that'd be distracting.
Yeah, it kind of broke the flow, detracted from the experience. So it's about that synergy, text and image working together.
Okay, so we've talked about the wisdom, the different ways they're presented. Are there any downsides? Did anyone find them, well, lacking?
That's a fair question. One reviewer, while appreciating the wisdom, did mention something interesting. They found that reading a whole bunch of them back to back could feel a bit repetitive.
Ah, okay. Too much of a good thing, maybe.
Sort of, with some fables and morals feeling a bit similar or maybe not quite as deep as others. They also felt that sometimes the stated moral didn't seem to perfectly match the story itself.
A slight disconnect.
Which suggests that maybe, for some people, a curated selection, just the greatest hits, so to speak, might be more engaging than trying to read hundreds all at once. It allows for more reflection on each one.
That makes sense. Quality over quantity sometimes.
And this brings up a really interesting point for you, listening with all these fables and interpretations floating around. Which ones really stick with you? What lessons feel most relevant in your life today?
That's a great question to mull over. And hey, if you're enjoying this deep dive into Aesop's fables, we'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the Book Nook podcast and maybe leave us a review. It helps us know what you like and bring you more conversations like this.
Definitely. So let's try and bring this all together. It seems pretty clear why Aesop's fables have lasted for literally centuries.
Yeah, the endurance is incredible.
They're simple yet somehow profound narratives, those memorable characters, often animals, which makes them accessible, and the sheer timelessness of the wisdom and the morals. They just keep offering valuable insights into being human.
And we've seen how different editions can really shape that experience. It highlights how important it is to consider things like, the translation or retelling quality, the illustration style, whether it fits the audience, and how the morals are presented, if at all.
Right. Whether you want just a quick taste or a really comprehensive collection, digging into Aesop can be a genuinely rewarding journey.
So here's a final thought, maybe something to chew on. Given how relevant these ancient lessons still feel, What single fable do you think holds the most critical message for our world right now, today?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Revisiting these seemingly simple stories might offer surprisingly deep perspectives on the challenges and maybe the opportunities we face now.
Definitely something to think about. Well, thank you for listening to the Book Nook podcast. And remember to check the link in the description to get your copy of Aesop's Fables and keep exploring these amazing, timeless tales.